This mission is called Reservoir Ridge. In this mission, a company plus of Syrians withdrawing from the German advance have pushed west into the Kurdish mountains, um, adjacent to a river or lake of some sort, and they've taken up defensive positions here as sort of a last stand against the German advance. There's, as I said, there's approximately a company here, but there could be more, and the elements are mixed and in disarray, and they've created hasty fighting positions to stop my advance. And in this mission, I'm given access to a company of Gebirjäger, German Alpine infantry, and support elements, including 122 millimeter howitzer and the 120 millimeter mortars that are organic to the company. I've also been given access to 2 platoons of weasels, a tow platoon and a 20 millimeter cannon platoon. Starting off, the 3 command sections for the company they were dismounted, and there's not enough room in the vehicles to mount all of them. So I found that to be strange. So now let's overview the terrain. So we have a rising ridge that reaches an apex at Hill 306. And then there's a ravine with some orchards and interspersed with berms and reverse slope positions. That would be ideal for ambushing my forces, that is. There's also some dried riverbeds, as we see here. It's all pretty rocky and interspersed with trees. It's sort of a reverse slope defense heaven. It's practically designed for reverse slope defending. And then the valley leads up to another ridge line, which is made prominent by a series of interlocking trenches and fighting positions. It did say in the briefing that the enemy was harassed by aircraft all throughout the day, and that they're not expected to have any vehicle support. But I wouldn't put it past them to have heavy machine gun and true serve weapon support. So, my plan for assaulting... Oh, by the way, I should just mention, if it wasn't obvious, my mission is to capture the strong points on top of those hills where the trenches are, and also to secure a compound in the rear area of the trenches. My plan for accomplishing these objectives is going to be as follows. I'm going to attack with my entire company mounted on the right flank to the northeast. I'm going to swoop around, get enfilading fire positions from the eastern approach, suppress and fix the enemy, destroy him with artillery, and then assault up the hill from there. The assault platoon will be The Assault Platoon will be the platoon that has the MG3, and I also plan to have the 2nd Rifle Platoon break away from the assault group and to provide a base of fire onto the enemy's flank. So they're not actually going to be assaulting the ridgeline, at least not initially. Preparatory bombardments will include attempting to decapitate the enemy headquarters, which I suspect is in the compound in the rear area, and to also kill and suppress enemy that could be on strong point 2, the strong point nearest to my approach. Here we are. This is the structure which I'm being ordered to capture, and it would be a logical position for an enemy headquarters to be positioned. So I'm just going to go ahead and destroy that building right off the bat, try to decapitate the enemy's leadership.
Feueranforderungen kommen!
I'm going to use the howitzers for that.
Fire mission out.
I guess I should also add that when the morning comes, I will be given access to a tornado
Feueranforderungen kommen!
aircraft.
Roger. Request fire.
So I will have some
Out.
air support, but it's going to come later in the battle. Right now it's about half an hour to 45 minutes until dawn. I'll have the advantage initially because of my NVGs and other night optics. The maneuver plan is going to be as follows. I'm going to advance in 2 successive lines. The base of fire will be in the front of the column, while the assault group will be in the 2nd line, followed by the forward observers and the sniper squads.
Feueranforderungen kommen!
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to switch out. I'm going to switch the order of the 2 platoons, because I want the platoon with the grenade launcher to be on point, because they're going to be the base of fire. You always want your base of fire to initiate contact, because the base of fire can halt and then engage the contact while the maneuver group goes around it and flanks and destroys the contact, or otherwise breaks from the contact. And this is a fairly bold maneuver. I am going to be skylining up onto the ridgeline in front of my assembly area, but I figure I'm going to have the advantage because it's still dark out. The enemy should not be able to see me. The enemy is supposed to be remnants of a motor rifle battalion, so unlike the special forces, which I've been engaged by and engaged in the past, they shouldn't have any abundant NV optics. I am a little worried about the sniper squad, mainly because they're in wolf vehicles, and if the enemy starts lighting up that ridge, they're going to be suppressed or killed very quickly. Unfortunately, there's no room in the trucks, so this is going to have to do. So here we go. My wave attack has begun. Oh, as to the weasels are going to be in reserve. I don't really know because, in my experience, they've tended to be extremely bad at spotting enemy and very vulnerable to, basically anything. So I'm going to use them in reserve and use them for direct fire support after I already okay, so right off the bat, somehow the enemy knows where I'm maneuvering and drops a massive fire mission on my maneuvering force, killing the driver of one of the sniper teams. But at this point, when you're already in motion, there's not much you can do. So I'm just gonna push through the fire mission. And although the driver of that sniper vehicle was killed, the sniper crew themselves took over, and the situation was under control. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop smoke and I'm going to dismount my Overwatch element, the platoon that has the grenade launcher. I'm going to tell them to assault online towards Hill 306. They're going to interdict any enemy that could have an enfilading fire position upon my own maneuver group. Then I'm going to send in my maneuver group in tactical bounds towards the objective. Oh, I guess I should make a note on those few contacts that I had leading up to this ridge line. It may not be obvious from the video. They were empty trucks that were abandoned. They were still 121 trucks. So fortunately, that the driver of that sniper vehicle was the only man to be injured, or I should say wounded. The only man to be wounded during the initial movement. And now it's time to begin the next phase of the operation, which is establishing a base of fire and then maneuvering by fire. And the trucks are, at least on the left, are still in a little bit of a reverse slope, so they shouldn't be exposed to enemy fire. Meanwhile, in the distance, you can see those rounds, my fire mission hitting the trenches. My forces are just shooting at another empty vehicle. If this is a daytime assault, now would be a good time for an ATGM ambush. That would really fuck shit up. But the enemy can't spot me, thankfully. Okay, so I'm going to advance my maneuver platoon online. I'm going to have the MG3 squad in Overwatch. And the command element as well will be flank Overwatch. I'm going to use the trucks to provide suppressive fires with their MG3s. In the past, I haven't really used those trucks to their full potential, I don't think. So I'm going to really try this mission to use them properly. Because, well, they're basically a very well-armored Humvee. Or sort of like a, well, I guess they're more similar to a Striker. But I've been afraid of exposing them to enemy fire. And they should not be exposed to enemy fire, but they at least can be. Unlike Humvees, where even the smallest caliber weapon will cause casualties to the riders. And frankly, it's an unacceptable risk to expose them into a forward area. They were never designed, nor have they ever excelled in a conventional warfare setting. Humvee means, you know, part of the acronym is utility vehicle. and they are utility vehicles. They were never designed to
And a mission. Out.
They were never designed to be on the front lines, and they don't do well in that regard. And if you compare it to something like the Wolf, you know, these little trucks that I'm using with my own reconnaissance forces, you can see that the Wolf was, you know, designed for combat because it's small and it's extremely fast. It's similar to the Russian UAZ.
Feueranforderungen
Meanwhile, the
kommen.
Humvee is a pretty distinct silhouette and isn't very fast, at least not when compared to Jeeps. And it's also
Feueranforderung kommen.
consumes a great deal of fuel. So at this point, my game was lagging, which is always an indicator to me that something is about to happen, even though that it's metagaming, and you should never really admit that. It's true, my game was lagging substantially, so I knew that units were being spawned. And my game never lags when I'm playing the game normally, but it lags when I'm recording, when I'm frapsing. Because the frapsing takes so much system resources that it will definitely, you know, be affected by new things being loaded into memory. So what I'm doing here is I'm just positioning my weasels into Overwatch. I know that they're not going to be able to spot anything because they're useless at spotting, but at least I can use them for direct fire support. On the right flank, I'm a little surprised. I haven't met any enemy contact yet, and if I would have known that there was so little enemy contact here, I would have surely just rode up into the right flank with my trucks and not advanced at this very cautious pace. I'm using Bounding Overwatch, and I'm being very careful. So I'm just going to advance the Overwatch platoon up about 100 meters. Reason for this is I just want to make sure that I'm not being flanked, or I just want to make sure that they're going to be in a position to properly support the maneuver element.
Feueranforderungen empfangen. Ende.
The sniper teams as well are being put into Overwatch. So we've spotted our first live contact. There's an RPG team on the other side, on the reverse slope of the berm in front of my Overwatch platoon. We've also encountered another contact. Hiding in a bomb crater is a
Roger, fireman.
crewman from one of those Zills.
Abgefeuert kommen.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
I was expecting tracers to be flying in at me from all directions, but
Aufschlag.
it never
Ende.
happened.
Angefeuert, kommen!
Abgefeuert. Ende.
Now we've encountered an enemy, a Special Forces sniper team. And I hope, at this point I was
Achtung, Aufschlag!
really worried about seeing a company of Special Forces pour over the bridge line and engage me, but
Wirkungsschießen,
Yeah.
kommen!
it didn't say anything in the briefing about Special Forces being in this area. Although it did say there could be a variety of other forces the area that were unaccounted for.
Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Ende.
Shot. Over.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
Also, at this point, I'm slightly worried about enemy armor, even though that it said that the armor that was in this area was destroyed during the day. It wasn't very confident, the information that I received. So I'm going, instead of moving both of my weasels down into the valley, I'm going to leave one in Overwatch by the assembly area, and I'm going to leave the tow weasels in reserve the entire mission.
Aufschlag. Ende.
This way, I don't endanger them with superfluous fires onto infantry positions, and I keep them reserved for important tasks such as interdicting a tank rush. So what happened here is that one of my sections of the maneuver element that we're assaulting, they had a KIA from the sniper team. The section that's on the furthest, the section that is closest to the enemy on the left. And I'm also now spotting enemy infantry contacts in the orchards about 100 meters away from my element that lost a man to the sniper. And many contacts are being spotted in the ravine, in the dried up riverbed. Meanwhile, the snipers continue to fire upon me, so I'm going to suppress them with the M83 and then call a fire mission on them. I'm also now going to start utilizing the trucks and the weasel that is in Overwatch. I guess we can call it a fire mission. So I'm going to bound back to get that man that's incapacitated and hopefully save him. Meanwhile, these contacts that are engaging my maneuver force, they are outside the line of sight of the Overwatch group. Although the vehicles of their own platoon could provide fires onto the enemy. But as I said, I didn't really understand the potential of those trucks, so I didn't really utilize them until later in the mission. Like, what I should be doing now, if I was smart, is I would just immediately do an area suppression with all those trucks using the MG3s. Just area suppress that entire area where that enemy company is moving. So it looks like there's an enemy company-sized force moving down the center towards my Overwatch group, which is actually fine because I'm in a reverse slope ambush position. So if they want to attack down the center, they're just going to skyline and get murdered, especially in low light visibility like this. So I canceled the fire mission that was being used against the trenches on the ridge, and I'm going to direct it to try to interdict those enemy forces that are moving towards the center. I should have been a little bit more, like I said, I should have been more proactive with my vehicles at this time. Like, I could have moved the weasels up, and even though they can't see anything, at least the infantry could, and then I could just use their direct fires. We're also spotting motion at the top of the ridgeline in the center, and my grenade launcher is suppressing and destroying those contacts. Meanwhile, the contacts that are in the orchards are very resilient to my fires because of the orchards. The orchards themselves are the orchards themselves, I should say, are absorbing a lot of the ordnance that is being fired at them. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do something that I usually forget to do, which is before I move my MG out to support the maneuver element, I'm going to go ahead and load him up with 7.62 so he doesn't go dry.
Feueranforderungen kommen!
This right here is another instance of giving way too much respect to my enemy. I'm calling it a fire mission that's danger close to my own Overwatch group because I don't want to move my forward observers any closer to the front because I'm worried that they'll be predicted by enemy fire. Meanwhile, I mean, that's a pretty irrational fear because I have yet to receive any direct fire from the enemy. They don't even see me right now. I'm just shooting at them and they can't see where I'm firing from. Pretty funny, actually. So now I'm going to use squad bounding Overwatch to move up the hill. One squad at a time will bound towards the ridge line. They'll bound behind the squads in a chain. The element that's in the rear will bound to the front of the chain, and then the new element that is in the rear will bound to the front of the chain just repeatedly. And this way you sort of caterpillar towards the enemy contacts, and the entire way you have your fire sectors covered. To maneuver without that is dangerous and risky, and you would only do so in an emergency, or in a situation in which you know where the enemy is, and you can positively suppress him with another force. I'm going to move the weasels up, or at least a weasel up. And although the weasel can't see anything, very typical, I'm going to fire where the infantry are reporting contacts. We have a platoon plus moving down the center, probably a company minus. And now there's a larger engagement occurring as we bound towards our objective. I considered moving the weasel up, the second weasel, or the second autocannon weasel, but I decided against it because I wanted him to be able to see the top of the ridge line if I needed support fires of some sort. Now I'm going to move my trucks up.
Shot. Over.
Feuer, Ende.
So the enemy is completely pinned down. They're unable to spot my own forces, and they're pinned.
Roger. Fire for a bit.
einstellen! Feuer einstellen!
Here, I'm going to change my mind about the fire mission. I'm going to call it in much further away.
Roger.
Much more
Taking fire.
accurately.
End of mission.
Exposed to forward observers. I mean, without risk, though, I should add. I'm not really exposed to any substantial risk. Now I begin to use my Fuchs trucks. Finally, express that whole area. If I wanted to prosecute this assault quicker, what I could have done, is I could have brought both platoons to this position, and the grenade launcher platoon could have set up Overwatch here, and then the maneuver platoon that I'm using now could have just directly, moved up onto the ridge line. But I didn't know that the enemy resistance was going to be so low on the far right flank. So I just received another section of orders.
Feueranforderung, kommen! Feueranforderung, kommen!
So those forces that are moving towards the center have made contact with my Overwatch group. And now there's a crossfire initiating. The idea is to fix the enemy there with the MG3s. This way, I can destroy them with the artillery. It's going to be difficult for me to destroy those contacts with small arms due to the orchards. The orchards are really providing an obstacle. But I should be able to suppress them at least with the MG3s and the small arms there.
Feueranforderung empfangen, Ende.
Angefeuert, kommen!
Abgefeuert, Ende.
Achtung, Aufschlag, kommen!
Roger. Request fire.
Aufschlag, Ende.
And our
Abgefeuert.
G-Team is about
Kommen.
100 meters away from my Overwatch group.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
And they initiate contact.
Achtung, Aufschlag, kommen!
Aufschlag. Ende.
Wirkungsschießen. Kommen. Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Ende.
Shot. Over.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
And the fire mission arrives.
Flash.
Aufschlag. Ende.
Wirkungsschießen, kommen!
Fire for effect. Out.
Feueraufdruck beendet, Ende!
Now the howitzers that are supposed to be landing on that enemy company are landing awfully danger close, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that fire mission again. Actually, just firing it. Just fire it.
Ermitteln Schießwerte. Kommen.
fire. Out.
Almost to the top of the ridge now. Now the enemy is spotting in a fire mission on my Overwatch platoon. So I was planning on doing this anyway, but they sort of forced my hand. I'm just going to assault down the center and finish off the remnants of that company. And that will accomplish two things. First thing is that it will push up the security for my maneuver force. And the second thing is that it will save the platoon from being interdicted by the fire mission. And from the top of the trench line, a heavy machine gun opens fire on my maneuver forces. Dishka. It's firing at one of the trucks. So I'm going to direct the fire mission onto that position and also suppress it with MG3 and autocannon fire.
Feueranforderungen kommen!
There we see sort of an example of the resilience of those trucks, because the Dishka did hit the front armor of the truck with about 30 rounds, and there was no casualties. If that was a Humvee, chances are everyone in the Humvee would be dead, or at least a substantial number of passengers. Clear that my suppression fires, combined with the fire missions, have dealt quite a few casualties to the enemy that have been maneuvering towards me. Looking at those enemy squads, they're pretty much devastated.
Abgefeuert, kommen!
Abgefeuert, Ende.
So there are some enemy forces still defending the burn. Leading up towards the center.
Achtung, Aufschlag, kommen! Aufschlag,
Meanwhile, the assault on the ridgeline has begun.
Abgefeuert, kommen!
Abgefeuert, Ende.
I'm pushing up the Overwatch platoon, I notice that they're being interdicted by machine gun fire from the ridge line. It's another dish guy. I can tell just from the sound of the fire. And there it is. It's on a reverse slope burn.
Achtung, Aufschlag, kommen.
About 300 meters away, so I immediately call off the assault
Wirkungsschießen, kommen.
of that section and send them behind the berm into defilade. Meanwhile, the MG3s
Ende.
and the trucks from the Overwatch platoon are going to suppress that MG.
Feuer einstellen, Feuer einstellen! Verstanden, Feuer einstellen, Ende.
And my grenade launcher and Overwatch has run dry of ammunition. They're now just simple rifle.
Feueranforderungen kommen!
So there hasn't been much motion from the center. The enemy force that was moving towards the center is probably suppressed or destroyed for the most part. They're probably just cowering. Sun's coming up. The sun should be up within 5 minutes or so. Now that I've actually started to use Fuchs trucks, I found them to be very useful. mainly because unlike many of the Humvees, which have a 50 cal, and thus have limited ammunition, the Fuchs trucks have they have the MG3, which uses 7.62, and since it's a smaller round, you can fit much more ammunition into the vehicle. I'm not sure exactly how much ammunition these trucks have, but if I was using Humvees, they would definitely be dry by now. They usually carry about 500 rounds, and these, when I checked the content display on the vehicle, it said 1,000 plus. So I don't know. Okay, so the reserve platoon has arrived. It said in the briefing that I should use this platoon to exploit any foothold that I achieve on the mountain, on the hill rather. So with their arrival, I'm going to go ahead and move my Overwatch platoon up onto the berm and start to try to engage any contacts that are below on the reverse slope, or correction, on the forward slope. I'm also going to start to be much more aggressive because I only have 18 minutes to complete the mission. Oh, yeah. That actually could be a lie. I can't read the...
Feuer einstellen! Feuer einstellen!
Yeah.
Achtung, aufschlagen! Aufschlagen, Ende!
So it looks like the enemy is running to the northwest through a ravine. I'm not exactly sure where they're going, but it looks like there's at least an entire platoon there. They're running away from me, and that's fine. I don't really argue. The Overwatch platoon in the center has made contact with an enemy infantry section. And also an RPG team. So, the first section has crested the hill leading to the trenches. Unfortunately, that heavy machine gun team that originally fired on my trucks, one of them was still alive and ambushed my forces as they were coming up the ridge, incapacitating one of my troopers. So I'm going to go ahead and toss hand grenades into that little defilade where they were ambushing me from, push up under the ridge line, and then establish a foothold for the rest of the platoon to make it up there and exploit the assault. Yeah, it is 18 minutes actually. When I'm in the Adobe Premiere preview screen, the video quality is much lower than what you would see from the final product, so I can't really make out the text, which is why I haven't been referring to elements by name a lot of the time. If I don't write them down before I start the video, then I can't really see what they are unless I memory. So another Dishka is spotted on that same ridgeline where the other one was.
Feueranforderung, kommen.
Go ahead and destroy that MG with mortar fire.
Auftrag beendet. Ende.
there's also a command squad where the heavy machine gun position was as well, and I destroyed that command squad with grenade fire. You can now enter the trenches and begin clearing them. Ideally, the way you want to clear trenches, you want to have one group that's overviewing the trench, or correction, overwatching the trench, and you want to have another group that assaults through the trench. So it's sort of like a modified bounding overwatch. You have one group that looks down into the trench and looks around it. They are firing on the trench where the enemy could be. The other group is, moving through the trench in a column.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
So my air support has arrived. The tornado has just arrived on station with only 15 minutes to spare on this scenario. Well, regardless, I'm going to put them to good use.
Abgefeuert. Kommen.
The sun has just come up. It's now dawn. It's about to be dawn. Meanwhile, my overwatching snipers are picking off survivors in the center that survived the artillery
Achtung,
barrage
Aufschlag.
earlier.
Kommen.
Aufschlag, Ende.
I'm not expecting much resistance in this first line of trenches because I bombarded them before during the preparatory phase of the operation. There may be a few survivors, but there shouldn't be a large force in the first line of trenches. Which is fortunate and was intentional.
Achtung, Aufschlag.
Because
Kommen. Aufschlag.
if there
Ende.
was, say, a platoon up in that trench, they would have just mowed down my attackers, because I have no means by which to suppress them from the slope position that I'm at.
Abgefeuert. Abgefeuert.
The only way I can attack this position is to destroy the first line of defenders, and then, isolate and destroy the others. I'm spotting some movement over on the strong point 1 area, the front of the trench line.
Feueranforderung. Kommen.
They're probably moving into position to fire on my forces that are assaulting strong point 2. But I'm going to immediately suppress
Achtung,
them
Aufschlag.
with
Kommen.
fire and mortars.
Wirkungsschießen. Kommen. Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Ende.
So we made contact in the trenches. We have a forward observer group and the remnants of another section. I quickly gained fire superiority and suppress them. Meanwhile, I'm going to move my other group, my Overwatch group, towards the trench to get an aim point down into the trench, get an enfilading fire position, and then I'm going to destroy the forward observer group. While I'm doing that, I notice that there's a extreme threat to my operation right now, and that is a Zu-23 truck. I immediately order my forces to destroy that truck, prioritizing it over the infantry in the trench. Because if the ZU were to get its gun, were to turn its guns to bear on me, it would not be a good day for my troopers. That's for sure. I've yet to see the ZU truck really engage my forces effectively, but it is dangerous. As I know how the weapon system works, I know the capabilities of a 23 millimeter autocannon that fires extremely fast.
Feuerauftrag beendet. Ende.
So, threat neutralized. It's now time to support my troopers that are in that trench. But right now, they're not really in a position to assault down the trench line without support of a Overwatch group.
Stand by for catch and crit. Roger, you're route to IP.
So I continue to be harassed by Dishka fire from the ridgeline, but I don't want to waste my artillery on those Dishkas because I'm currently assaulting the trenches. So any fire support needs to be prioritized for the assault of the trenches. And at this point, I noticed that my maneuver platoon is very low on ammo, and they need to be resupplied, otherwise they're not going to be combat effective for much longer. So what I'm doing here is I'm splitting the team of this squad. I'm sending one team back to the vehicle to get ammo, and then I am re-merging the teams, and then they'll share the ammo. And that is a very effective way of keeping security while also being able to access resupply. Recall the previous mission, what I did is I had one call sign complete at a time resupply, but in that video and in that mission, I wasn't actively attacking an enemy position. I was actually reorganizing my company at a forming up point. In this situation, I am about 50 meters away from enemy infantry. So this is a combat, this is a way of resupplying during combat. You split the teams, you send one team to go and grab ammo while the other team remains on the line and maintains the same level of security.
Roger, fire mission request. Out.
Calling in air support on Strong Point 1, telling them to engage any infantry contacts they can spot with heavy ordnance. Meanwhile, we're having some sporadic contacts in the trenches. I've spotted an SPG gun on the far side of the trench. See this? See how I'm moving along the trench? Or I should say I'm moving on top of the ground surrounding the trench with that one squad. That squad is actually the squad that's going to suppress any infantry that are in the trench. The squad that's moving down the trench is going to be destroying the contacts. So, Strong Point 2 is going to be, it's being taken care of by my maneuver platoon. Now, to attack Strong Point 1, I'm going to maneuver behind the trench line using the reserve platoon that arrived a few minutes ago. They're going to quickly maneuver around Strong Point 2 and then attack Strong Point 1 from behind. Now, that that might not be ideal. I'd like to capture and secure Strong Point 2 before I do anything with Strong Point 1. But the truth of the matter is that I'm running out of time on the mission, so I don't have the luxury to do that. I have to attack both objectives at once, which is not wise, but that's what I have to do in order to win the mission. And at the same time, I'm also increasing the tempo across my entire front. I'm now going to assault. I'm going to assault the center where the remnants of that enemy company was.
Fire
with my regional Overwatch group. Alright, so the reserve is now at an FUP. They're in defilade. They're ready to dismount their infantry, dismount them, bound over the ridge, and hopefully get an aim point on Strong Point 1. Now, there is one outstanding issue here, and that is the right side of what we're looking at now. That's the low ground behind Strong Point 1 and Strong Point 2. There could be a reverse slope ambush there, possibly with a machine gun. That is a standard practice in trench warfare ever since World War I, is to have a heavy machine gun behind your line, overviewing the entire rear. This way, if someone flanks your line, you can suppress the flanking forces and then have the time to reorganize your defenses and shift your defenses around inside the trenches. So, I am expecting there to be a heavy machine gun either at the structure or somewhere in the flanks. I noticed that there was a trench behind the structure in the northwestern corner of the map. There could be an HMG there, or there could be an HMG in the dead grounds, anywhere in the low grounds. Okay, so as we're beginning to assault, we're taking fire from Strong Point 2. Now, this would be avoided if we secured Strong Point 2 first, but that wasn't an option, so I'm going to need to just assault through the fire and proceed on task. One of the sections that was attacking took a casualty, although, as we'll see in a moment, it wasn't actually from the Strong Point 2 defenders, it was from the heavy machine gun, which I suspected was in position. Yes, and now we have a sound contact, 2 sound contacts. One's coming from the structure, and one's coming from the right side of the structure. And the familiar sound of Kadishka is on the air. So I'm going to go ahead and suppress the area where the sound's coming from. And I spot it. HMG team hiding in the open. Well, it's not really in the open, but they're in a bomb crater. It's not really a prepared defensive fighting position. I'm going to use the trucks, MG3s, my newfound tools to suppress and destroy the contact. Meanwhile, as I suspected before, there is a command team, a company command team inside the structure. Somehow they survived the preparatory bombardment, even though the building they're in was absolutely destroyed. Nevertheless, I'm trying to divide my fires between suppressing Assault Point 1, suppressing the command team, and suppressing the HMG. And we made contact in the center with the remnants of that company. One of my sections takes a casualty, although I don't believe it was from the contacts in the center. I believe it was from an HMG that was firing on me from the ridge line. I'm going to assault through. I need to assault through. Find the remnants of a Platoon Plus. And you can hear a Dishka firing from the ridgeline that I'm suppressing with MG3s, and I have been suppressing for like an hour. Well, it hasn't been that long, but almost. Pretty sure it was a Dishka that caused that casualty. I mean, the casualties could have been avoided if I had about 20 more minutes to the mission. I guess it was my own fault in mishandling my time.
End of mission. Out.
So I'm gonna fire some Panzerfaust into that command bunker. If that doesn't do the trick, I'm gonna call in a JDAM on it. So the command team wasn't killed by my Panzerfaust and suppression fire, so I'm just going to JDAM the building because it is a high priority target. If I kill the command team, then the enemy will likely surrender, especially with this current level of casualties. I've inflicted quite a substantial amount of casualties onto the enemy, and that will be reflected in their decision to surrender or not. Going to move up the other platoon's trucks so I can provide some ability to fire down the trench line. Some sporadic small arms fire from the bunker. We've made contact with the survivors from Strong Point 1. Calling the JDAM on the ruins. Reason is that I don't want to spend my time by detaching a section to go make sure that that command element is dead. So, even though the building was destroyed by that Panzerfaust, you know, I've seen Syrians survive that. The building's flat. The building's collapsing, or correction, the building collapses, I should say. They don't really seem to have an effect on killing infantry, even though that I think that they should, at least nominally. So, we're still taking some small arms from the ridgeline of Strong Point 1. They are determined defenders. Even under this constant hail of empty fire, they're able to squeeze off some rounds. Now we're assaulting the trench, throwing hand grenades in, and moving to engage. And keep in mind that I'm keeping both platoons on the reverse slope. And the reason for that is there could still be enemy in the valley area, and I don't want to risk exposing them to fire. So they're going to stay on the north side, the northeast side of the strong points. Right now, the MG3s are doing some plunging fire over the heads of my maneuver forces. Now the depressing sight of shooting men that are in the fetal position after being artillery suppressed by MGs. It's pretty depressing. I think it would be cool if there was an ability in this game to take prisoners, even if, you know, even if they just vanished off the screen. I think it would be more humane than just shooting them when they clearly pose no threat to you. Such as men that are just crying on the floor, and I just run up and shoot them while they're on the floor. It's pretty brutal.
Roger, en route to IP. Inbound to attack. 30 seconds out. One is in the pub.
Roger, cleared hot.
Reservoir.